Hey everyone, welcome to the Carlsbad Report. My name is Steve Olson. I debated whether I wanted to answer this question. We've actually got this question submitted 4 different ways from 4 different perspectives, but they're pretty much all the exact same question. And before I get into it, understand that this is a very hot topic within the real estate industry. There's a lot of arguing within the real estate circles, both online and in person, about what Zillow is doing to the real estate market. Is it good for the consumer? Is it bad for the consumer? And I'm not going to tell you whether it's good or bad. I will give you a couple pieces of insight right now. Number one, we are not a Zillow partner. We do not pay Zillow, and we have only paid Zillow in 20 years of doing business, maybe $200 total, right? So this is coming from the perspective of somebody who is not a Zillow Flex partner, and that's important to understand because the advice and the process that I'm going to give you around how Zillow works may be shocking to you. Most consumers don't know this is how Zillow works. So the question that triggered this video today was, how come when I ask a Carlsbad question, every agent that seems to get back to me right away doesn't know the answer to the question, and very few of them are actually in Carlsbad, like aren't I talking to the listing agent? And the short answer of this is no, you are not talking to the listing agent. And I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. But I do want to explain to you how Zillow works, so that way, as you're going through your home search, especially in Carlsbad, you know exactly what you're doing, how all this stuff works, and all that fun stuff. So I'm going to turn this question off. We're going to go into a quick screen share really quick. So we've got situation. In order to understand how Zillow works, we have situation. I'm going to say situation A, and we have, or I shouldn't say situation. Let's go scenario, even though it's probably the same thing. So scenario A, and then we're going to go scenario B. Scenario A is a world that exists with no Zillow, right? So we have, let's say you've got your home listed for sale and it's marketed. You've got flyers going out, newsletters, you've got social ads, you've got YouTube videos, you've got, direct mail, you've got letters, you've got door knocking, you've got open house, you've got all the portals, like everything's firing. And because of all that, you generate a prospective buyer who has an interest in your home. Okay, so that buyer is going to look at that letter or however they came in with it, and they're going to say, I have a question. So we're going to move on to the next phase. We're going to call this a question. And based on the modality of the marketing, and what I mean by that is where they found the home, that question normally gets routed to the listing agent. Now, the good thing about talking to a listing agent is the listing agent is what we call the source of truth. And the only other closer source of truth would be the actual seller, but most people don't talk directly to the seller. The other time that they could, route this question to would be as if you are already working with a buyer agent. So if you have a buyer's agent that you are committed to, the question should go to the buyer's agent. The buyer's agent should go to the listing agent, and then they can get everything answered, right? This is assuming you have a buyer's agent. If you don't have an agent representing you in the sale yet, like let's say maybe it's really early on, it's very common for people to go to Trulia or Redfin or Homes.com or Zillow or any of these portals, and they just ask the question right there on the listing, assuming they're going to get directly to the listing agent, and you don't, and I'll explain how that works here in a second. The good thing about being the source of truth is you're going to get the answer. The bad thing about getting the source of truth, and this is probably in favor of Zillow, is that this agent represents the seller. They don't represent you. They don't represent the market. They don't represent playing fair. They only represent the seller. If you've ever walked into a new build, like a new community, and there's a new build rep in there that's explaining you all the features of the home and the development plan and what's available now and specs and discounts and all that stuff. That's really cool for an information phase because they're probably the only person other than the builder who knows all that info. But on the bad side, they don't represent the buyer, they represent the seller, and their job is to get the seller the most amount of sales in the least amount of time at the highest price possible. That is their only fiduciary that they have. They have no fiduciary to you, the buyer. Right? Doesn't matter if you overpay, if you underpay, if you get a good rate, if you get a bad rate, if you get good terms, you get bad. It does not matter. Their fiduciary is to the seller. It is not to the buyer, unless they sign an agreement stating otherwise, which most new build, actually pretty much all new build reps are not going to do. They are an employee of the seller. So the good thing is you get all the questions answered. The bad thing is that there is no loyalty to you uh, you need to go to your own buyer's agent. So the good thing about going to your own buyer's agent is that their loyalty is 100% to you. So the exact opposite is true with the buyer's agent. They have no fiduciary to the seller. They have no fiduciary to the listing agent. They have no fiduciary technically to the transaction. They only have a fiduciary responsibility to you, their buying client. So their job is to get you the best deal and the best time with the best terms based on your needs. That is literally a buyer's agent's job. And to identify homes that aren't on the market, to negotiate, to manage the closing process. Like, it is a crazy process to represent a client when buying the home. If you guys have ever purchased a home before and really had an opportunity to look like behind the scenes of all the work that goes in when repping clients, it's not just as easy as writing a contract and then waiting for a commission check. It's a lot harder than that, much harder than you think. But that's the process right now. If Zillow were not involved, right? So you might be asking like, okay, well, that's like pretty standard. Like, what does it mean with Zillow? Okay, let's go to scenario B. Somebody lists the home. You're a prospective buyer, right? You see that home on Zillow and you have a question. And the reason why we're talking about Zillow, Zillow did a great job. They have an unbelievable search portal. They do really well in advertising. Their Google ranking is through the roof. Like, they did a really good job, right? So this question is going to come up and maybe you're like, hey, is this still available? Or like, what's the size of the lot? Or I have specific questions on this. And that's going to come from, again, you looking at Zillow, just like the example above. But here's where everything changes. Instead of Zillow routing that lead to the listing agent, and we really have three groups of agents right here. We have listing agents, we have your buyer agent, if you already have one, and then we have what's called Zillow Flex Partners, or the agents that are on Zillow. Now, this Flex Partner, let's say that this home that you're inquiring in is in 92011, and it is a $2 million listing. There's going to be a group of Flex Partners in that zip code. Sometimes they're in the same team. Sometimes they're on multiple teams. There's multiple agents. And what's going to happen is Zillow's going to take that question, and instead of sending you to the listing agent, they're going to say, nope, we're not going to do that. Instead of sending you to the buyer's agent, say, nope, we don't do that because that person's on at Zillow. We're going to send them to our what we call Zillow Flex Partners. And Zillow Flex Partners, most of them are amazing real estate agents. This has nothing to do with anybody who is a Zillow Flex Partner, right? And what's going to happen is that lead's going to come in, and based on performance of conversion, meaning how many leads Zillow gives the agent versus what their conversion rate is, based on that conversion rate, they're going to route that lead to a Zillow Flex Partner. Okay? So we're going to call this Flex Partners. And what's going to happen is that Flex Partner is going to get on the call and they're going to say, hey, my name's Steve Olson. I'm a real estate agent. Thanks for calling Zillow. What questions can I answer? You're going to ask the question. They're going to say something like, I don't know. Let me get back to you. I'll figure that out. If somebody's local, great. They may already know. If they know the inventory, they may already know the answer. If not, they're going to get back to you. But what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to get you, and again, this isn't bad, they're going to try to get you into a showing as soon as possible because that's what Zillow says. Just go show the home. Don't worry about qualification. Don't worry about needs. They inquired on Zillow. Just go show the home and figure all that stuff out later. Which, again, there would be benefit to that in certain situations. And then what's going to happen is if you elect to use that agent in the transaction, that agent is going to pay Zillow 35 to 40% of their commission. So if it's a $1 million home and it's a 2% commission, that's $20,000. That means somewhere between $8,000 plus or minus, I'm doing the math in my head, I don't know what the exact number is, has to be paid for Zillow because Zillow made the connection. But it doesn't stop there. There's also metrics that Zillow wants. Zillow wants to make sure that X amount of leads that they give out are converted. I don't know what the numbers are, call it 1 in 10, whatever it is. So if you fall below that conversion threshold, they're no longer going to give you Zillow connections anymore. Zillow also has what's called Zillow Mortgage, or whatever their mortgage company is called. And they're going to say something to the effect of, hey, if you don't give so many referrals to our mortgage company, we're not going to give you as many clients to work back with because we believe that people deserve a chance at Zillow Mortgage. Again, I can't tell you if Zillow Mortgage is great. I can't tell you if they're bad. We are not a Zillow Flex partner. So if you want to learn that, go at your own risk and find out. They may be an amazing mortgage company. I have no idea. But as the consumer, it's important to understand that when you accept that agent, when that agent tells you, hey, you need to pre-qualify with Zillow Mortgage, they're not doing it because they think they're the best product in the world. They may be the best product in the world. They're doing it because their livelihood of receiving future Zillow clients tomorrow, next week, the week after, are dependent on how many people get pre-approved and close with Zillow Mortgage. So it's not in the best interest of the consumer to go get pre-qualified for Zillow. It's just because, hey, if you want our business, because we're the big giant gorilla in the marketplace, we need you to send them over to Zillow Mortgage. And if you refuse to do that, no hard feelings. We will just go find agents that want to do it. So imagine as a consumer meeting with a real estate agent in Zillow, and the Zillow is a great agent. They know the market. And oh, by the way, there is like, you don't know if this agent is in San Marcos, if they're in Carlsbad, if they're in Encinitas, if they're in Vista. They could be in San Diego. I know plenty of flex agents that are well outside of our market that don't know the intricacies of that given market. And this applies to everywhere, in regards to the United States. It doesn't always have to be a local agent, like relatively local. Like you're not going to get somebody from LA, answering questions about Carlsbad. It's not that spread out by any means, but the odds of you getting an agent that lives and works and focuses in that given city on Zillow, I would be making this percentage up. Maybe 60-40. I have no idea. 60%, they probably live in the area. 40%, they're in a, neighboring area, maybe in the same county, give or take. But imagine you making that connection. Agent's great. They show you the home. They get all your questions answered. You feel like they're the right agent for the job. And they say, hey, I need you to go get pre-qualified for Zillow Mortgage. You could look at Rocket. You could look at Rails Fargo. You can look at everything you want. There's no requirement, and we can't require anything. But here's where things get crazy. When the agent knows that pre-qualification and X amount of those deals they close need to be with Zillow Mortgage, they are disproportionately incentivized to get you over to Zillow Mortgage because their livelihood of getting future Zillow clients depends on that, right? So am I telling you not to inquire on Zillow? No, absolutely not. I think Zillow is an amazing search portal. I think what Zillow did is they said, hey, there's a need for internet search traffic. What if we just intercepted all of that internet search traffic, converted them on our platform, and then gave them out for referral fees to agents? Would that be a bad model? And listen, I don't think that's a bad model. I really don't. If I was as big and powerful as Zillow, I would probably do the exact same thing. But as a consumer, it's important to understand that if you have a question about a piece of real estate, the two people that you should focus on first are, if you're represented with a buyer agent, then I would go to my buyer's agent first. If I do not have the buyer's agent yet, I would go to the listing agent, understanding that the listing agent is going to have all the info and they represent the seller. Now, there is something called dual agency, to where an agent can represent the seller and the buyer. If it's a very experienced agent and they've been doing this a long while, there's a little bit of risk of it. There's some disclosure things that you kind of have to walk on a tightrope as an agent. Like, for example, if the seller says, hey, thanks for this counter for $2 million. Why don't we counter at 1.9? But just so you know, I'll go down to 1.750. If that agent is also representing the buyer, that agent cannot go tell the buyer, hey, here's a counter for 1.9, but hey, between you and I, the seller said they would go down to 1.750. So what? Just counter 1.750. I can get the deal done. That is a breach in fiduciary. That can't happen. And you might be asking, like, well, Steve, are there like protections in place to make sure that doesn't happen? And yeah, it's called contract law, right? You can sue over that. But there's no like formal mechanism in doing that. So if you're worried about that, if you're worried about that, that's understand. Just make sure you have your own buyer's agent, and there is an own listing agent, and there is a clear separation between those two agents so that you can negotiate that deal effectively. Getting back to the Zillow thing, look, Zillow's not bad. I think they did an amazing thing for the consumer, but it's really important to understand that when you inquire on Zillow, now sometimes, I forgot to mention this earlier, there are times when a Zillow Flex Partner has a bunch of listings. And in those times, those Zillow Flex Partners, when it's their listing, oftentimes, even though you are getting transferred to a Flex Partner, it is their listing, which in that case, you would be talking to the listing agent. So it's not 100% of the time that you're not going to talk to the listing agent, but it's, 96% of the time, it's not going to be the listing agent. So if they are a Flex Partner, you will be able to connect directly with the listing agent. And here's the other thing. I don't have this in. I will try to, let me see if I can share my screen. I'll go over to Zillow right now, and I'll show you what I mean. We'll just go pull up a random home here in Carlsbad. And let's look at this amazing home in Terramar. Okay, so you'll see right here, if I were to over here where it says contact agent on this right-hand side or request a tour, this is going to go into the Zillow Flex portal. But if I wanted to contact the listing agent directly, it's going to be displayed in two different parts on this. Above where it says 16.2 million, there's normally a line of text for all North County Association of Realtors, there's a line of text that would say like listed by Steve Olson, courtesy of Real Broker. If it is listed in San Diego MLS or anywhere in Orange County, like another MLS other than ours, you're going to find it down here, and you'll see it says listed by Seth O'Byrne at Compass, and Tim Smith up at Coldwell Banker Realty. Tim Smith's up in Orange County. Seth is down here in San Diego. Two amazing agents. But you can see right there, this is actually the listing agent right there. I know I can't. Let me see if I can highlight this. Yeah, this is actually the listing agent. And you can see that there's Seth's phone number and there's Tim's phone number right there. So you can call those numbers, speak directly to the listing agent, and no referral fee or anything like that applies. That is a direct connection to that agent, just like you were calling them on the sign. So if you use the contact agent button up here, or request a tour, that's going to Zillow Flex. If you go down here to the listing agent, that's going directly to the agent, and you can ask all those questions directly. I hope that clears that part up. So that's how Zillow works. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Again, not a perspective of Zillow is great, not a perspective of Zillow is bad, just understanding the expectations that need to be set when you ask questions on Zillow. And understand that if you are working with a buyer's agent, there are times that if you reach out to Zillow and you have that conversation with another agent, there could be an agency overlap. And if you don't have an agreement in place, it could cause some issues. And we obviously don't want that to happen. So if you have questions, go directly to the listing agent. Ideally, you go directly to your buyer's agent. Don't use the tour feature if you're worried about all the other stuff. That's how you get around that. Any questions? Let me know. So happy to help, and we'll see you on the next one. Let me interrupt this episode really quick and let you know that if you're considering purchasing a home in the next 1, 2, 3, 9, 12 months, we have a cheater guide that will let you know every single thing that you need to know to buy your next home in Carlsbad, California. Even if the home is not on the market right now, we have options for you. It's totally free. You can download everything, including a sample purchase contract, so you can be completely prepared to move forward. So go to steveolsongroup.com/buy or click the link in the description below.